Those Vaquero buckets are butter. Yes. Shoulders back. How are y'all? It's another episode. Here again. Sooner than you thought. Probably thought you had some free time. You don't. Okay, you got to sit here. You got to like. You got to subscribe. You got to leave a comment. Those are the rules. Like I said, I don't make them. I just abide by them. But how y'all doing out there? Another episode of CarQuicks. This is a news one. We're just going to talk about a few little things that I saw today, this week, just beginning. Week's not even done yet, so we got plenty of stuff probably coming out the end of this week. Hope y'all doing good out there, feeling good, doing well. I'm doing excellent. I got nothing to complain about. But you know what time it is. My little director's cut. I know somebody out there is going to tell me that it's called something else. Doesn't matter, okay? I like calling it the director's cut. So today is CarQuicks news, okay? That's what we're going to talk about. I don't know if there's anything really that crazy to talk about. There is something kind of funny. I'm not going to go directly off my notes because some of this stuff, I want to start off with the more hilarious part of all the news, and that's Tesla, okay? Besides the fact that they said, last week they said, successful space launch and then the joint blew up in the air, I was confused. I thought maybe that would be non-successful, but I was looking at it wrong. They just wanted to launch it. They didn't say anything about flying. But anyways, the news that we got today is, if you own a Tesla right now, I hope you're not trying to keep the value up because honestly, Elon don't care. He doesn't. He don't care. He is going to chop these prices more and more. The prices are getting Ginsu. Okay, remember the Ginsu commercial? Ginsu blade was cut through a can, a pair of shoes. That's what he's doing to the prices. The prices on the Teslas are getting Ginsu bladed, okay? Chopped up. Right now, what is it? I said it's January. Since January until now, in April, the Model 3 has gone down 20%. There aren't even, CVS don't even give you coupons that good. 20% off, it now starts at $39,900. So basically a little under $40,000. You still get the incentive. You get $3,750, $3,750 as opposed to this total $7,500 tax incentive. But the mere fact that they have dropped it 20% and you still could have the incentive if you qualify for it is wild. And that's just a quick thing because I saw it as I was writing my notes for this episode. I was like, they dropped the price again? You know, anybody that's looking for a Tesla right now, honestly, just chill out. Just chill out. They're about to drop the price again. At the rate he's going, by summer, them joints might be 40% off. Like a Black Friday sale on a Model 3. Crazy. Now, aside of the Model 3, there was some other news too that's really, really cool. At least I consider it cool. One of them is the Elantran. You see it up there. Okay, that was what the Elantran used to look like. And this is what it looks like now. Okay, this facelift that they just did completely saved this front end. Because prior to this new one, this thing was looking like a catfish on wheels. Don't act like I'm lying. Look at the current one, look at the one coming, and tell me that joint ain't looking like a catfish on wheels. It was. We all knew it was. There's a couple examples I saw on Instagram that look really dope, really cool. Lowered wheels, front lips. Like I said before in my other episode about BMW styling, cars should inherently look good from the factory. I shouldn't have to drop it, lower it, carbon fiber it, wide body it. I shouldn't have to do any of that to then step back and say it looks good. Now, the side profile always looked good, and I actually like the fact that it had the kind of contrasting lines. Even though I talked about all the extra trapezoids and all that in car design, at least they kept it to the side profile where it made some sense of what they were trying to do. But now this updated front end, Now we can have a conversation about why the Elantra N should be considered, especially if you're looking into the same realm of car like the Civic Type R, the Corolla, the GR Corolla, Volkswagen GTI, a Golf R, a WRX. You know, any of these kind of sports sedan, import sports sedans should not have this missing from the list. It makes 275, 276 foot-pounds of torque, inline 4. It performs great because the people that are engineering this car came from the previous M division. Yes, BMW's M division are now over at Hyundai making their N cars, which is why all the reviews you've seen have said, get past the idea of the nameplate if you want to get hung up on that says it's a Hyundai, it's not a Toyota, it's not a Honda, it's not a Nissan. Get past that and you have an excellent car. One that is flying under the radar and one that you probably don't have to do battle like I had to do to get a GR Corolla at MSRP, or the games that people got to play for the Civic Type R, because that's a straight nonsense, okay? Nonsense. And the upcoming Acura Type S, let's pray that it is MSRP only, because at the rate we're going, the games are just starting. They're gonna be some games. So the new Elantra N has a front facelift, looks great. And I'm gonna segue to something, because somebody asked me a comment about speaking about the Kona N. And this isn't really a full episode for that person who commented, so shout out to you. But he wanted a video about the Kona N. I want to do a full video on the Kona N, but I want to talk about something with the Kona N because I always have thought this was one of the most slept on cars. The Kona N uses the same structure that was used in the Elantra N, the Veloster N, all of those things it was used. It used the same one that was same motor, 275 horsepower, same setup for the suspension, and also handled by the same people that have been working on all the other cars. It's actually, to me, a hatchback. See, the interesting thing about the Kona N is that it is being touted as a little SUV, a little compact SUV. But the reality is, to me, I'm like, this thing is really a hatchback. Look at the shape of this. Now look at compact SUVs, similar to the Buick Envista I talked about, RAV4, anything like that that's compact. This thing is looking a lot better and is sitting lower. If you needed something that needed to haul people, have some utility, more utility than my GR Corolla. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you. This has more interior, probably more cargo space. I don't know about interior space, but more cargo space. It definitely can haul more probably on the roof as far as how it's handling, but you don't lose anything. 276 horsepower, you get a boost option with the N button that gets you 10 extra horses for a 20-second blast, included torque. It has a dual clutch transmission, 8-speed. No, it doesn't have a manual, but you're not with some garbage automatic transmission that isn't that good. You got a standard dual clutch transmission, 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. I mean, a couple years ago, this is unheard of, okay? A couple years ago, 4.8 seconds in anything would have had you looking around for a badge that came from maybe a German manufacturer or somebody or a Japanese manufacturer. To see them coming from Hyundai shows you just how far we have gone. And if you look at the interior of it, you get the same nice looking seats, same buckets. You get the same dashboard, you get the same look. The outside, the pops and bangs. If I could put a video up of how this thing sounds without just straight exhaust from the factory, you'd be shocked, because pops and bangs, if that's your thing, they're there and plentiful. Fuel mileage is good, things like that. Similar to like my car, 27 miles to the gallon. I think you can push it up to like 32 combined if you really were trying to push it. But the point that I'm having about this car is that it's never really brought up. So when that person made that comment, it actually made me think, and I was like, you know what? We don't really talk about the Kona N. We talk about the Elantra, the Veloster, but that one kind of gets left to the side, even though it has everything. The styling can be a little funky in certain areas with like the split taillights, kind of like the split headlights. But I was just driving home today and somebody was in a blue Kona N, and I drove by, he gave me a thumbs up, I gave him a thumbs up, and I'm looking at it like, that looks good. Like, that does not look bad. And he didn't have anything done to it. Again, He didn't lower it, didn't do nothing extra. Stock Kona N, and it looks the part. So if you needed something that was a little bit bigger than the standard hatchback, let's say you have a dog or a kid, or you just want to carry a few other things, maybe do some more outdoorsy things, but you wanted something that can handle well or do well on the back roads on the way to, I don't know, a campsite, on the way to doing some mountain bike riding, something that gives you the option of being spirited driving, but also the utility, you can't really go wrong here. And you get something that's actually different. I understand the sea of cars and the sea of SUVs out there for the ones that are very popular, like a Honda CR-V. You see them all the time. And obviously for people that just say, I want a standard SUV that does what I want it to do, then obviously those are considered the best for a reason. But if you want to kind of step outside the box and say, well, give me that, but maybe I do want something that's fun to drive. I don't want to always just be in something that's just mundane and plain, get me from point A to B. Maybe I want to have something that performs well, that has some power, that can have some modifications done to it, that can also carry all the things I have. This is one of those things. If you are on the fence or considering, I'm over here knocking my books over. If you're over here considering what you want to have, let's say you're trying to do the battle of trying to find a Civic Type R. I know somebody's gonna comment and say, ain't nobody cross shopping no Kona N and the CTR. I understand that. But here's the thing. Some people broaden their horizons as far as they can go. Maybe they don't have any history of the Civic Type R. Maybe they don't understand what all the hoopla is about the GR Corolla. Maybe they're just like, can I get something that is kind of sporty to drive and has some utility? And that's where this comes up. So the person that made the comment, I forgot your name. I'll put it up here when I do this video and you can see that you made this comment. If you're thinking about the Kona N, I would heavily consider it. You're not going to fight also with price points that being overmarked, market adjustment. You're dealing with a car that in the underpinnings are behind people that engineered this stuff for a company that was making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 cars. The engineering team from the old M division is currently at Hyundai creating the N line, the N model of cars. Isn't something to ignore or to be ashamed about. Some people get too caught up in names and be like, I don't want to drive that since a Hyundai. They're not going to think I'm serious. And they have no idea how the car is created, who's performing the engineering, and how it actually performs on the track. You won't really find much issues with it other than some people say the ride is kind of stiff. It's loud on the highway with the road noise. And that can be just by nature of having probably harder compound tires that are probably all season, suspension that can handle a little bit better. So there's gonna be a compromise there. They said the same thing about the GR Corolla. They're like, it rides stiff. I drive it every day to work and back and forth everywhere. And I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm not some extra young kid that's just like, I'm just gonna ride around with, cuff springs and would say the same thing. It doesn't ride bad. So I know sometimes when people see like stiff suspension, road noise, everything's relative. If you're riding around right now in some like clapped out Altima, this is going to be a luxury car. But if you've never been in anything new, or this is kind of like the first new car, you really can't lose on how it rides or drives. Only really people that have been driving for a long time, have had a large amount of different cars. They're the ones that might say, I don't like how it rides or rides a bit stiff. But listen, if you were in the world of trying to make changes and you want to modify something, you can change up the suspension. You can get some coilovers. You can make it ride a little bit better. Those are the type of things that are fun to add, not something that you have to add to make the car look good or to drive better out the factory. It drives fine. If you were to look at something that was a con, that's probably mostly what you're going to see about it. So for me personally, I actually considered the Kona N well before the GR Corolla was announced because I just liked how it looked. I was like, that's cool. You can haul people, you can do stuff. It's got the motor, it's got the engine, it can handle well. It's a good look. So if you're out there looking about that, between the Elantra N, the Kona N, the Veloster N, like Hyundai is very similar in the way that they have multiple options. There's a 3-door, 2-door hatchback, there's a sedan, and then there's a little SUV hatchback. That's the full gamut. Toyota has the GR Corolla, we got the GR86, we got the GR Supra. I mean, there's almost less as far as you come to utility that Toyota offers that Hyundai has over that. So if you want to have apples to apples argument about who has a better lineup, really, if you remove any bias about what company people like the most or where they're building it and just seeing the car for what it is, there's some really, really good options over there. Now, outside of the Elantra N being blessed with a complete facelift, because man, yo, prior to what they did here, catfish. Here's one thing though. I don't know if they're going to continue making the Elantra N. This facelift might be the last. As I've said before, any of these cars that you like, we might be looking at the final fight, the final countdown, the last batch. This is it. It's hybrid and electric coming. It's coming. An example, I was talking about the 300C last episode, about the history of it with, urban hip hop artists, people of my community driving them, the modifications they did to them. And currently, the news that came out recently is that Chrysler showed the electric version of the 300C to some dealerships in Las Vegas. Here's the big deal. I actually thought the 300C was dead, honestly. If I'm being 100%, I thought that last limited edition one, the little new SRT one they made with the V8 in it, I thought we were just looking at the last salute. See you later. It's been nice. But they showed the electric one, and they said it rides on the same chassis as the electric Charger. So Chrysler right now only has literally two cars, which sounds nuts. They have a Pacifica, and they have that limited edition 300C. That's it for the gas powered cars. So seeing the electric one shows you that one, how do you say his name? Stellantis, the new CEO of the entire, obviously, Fiat group, who's over Dodge and all that, he's making massive changes. So the Dodge Charger being electric, the 300C being electric, that's all major changes. One that's are gonna happen. It shows you we're at the last run. If you're thinking about any of these cars, you better cop. Ain't gonna be too much left. On to the next. Now, outside of electric 300Cs and facelifted Elantra Ns, something else got released that I have been but to see this start to happen means that we're going to start getting into a realm of something that I've watched as a kid all the time. So if anybody's watched old, Rust Valley restorations, Gas Monkey Garage, overhauling, if you ever subscribe to Motor Trend TV, you've watched a bunch of TV shows, and 90% of them, outside of the Top Gears and the Top Gear of America, almost all of them are always classic cars, trucks, muscle cars. And I've always said, why are we not getting, I'm into imports, right? I'm into the import scene. I like the Chargers and the Challengers and the Camaros and the Corvettes and the muscle cars, big V8s, but I'm, in my heart of hearts, I'm into the import scene. That's what I like the most. And so whenever I would see these shows, I would say, how come nobody is doing resto modded old imports? I mean, we see people do them if you go to shows. Some of the greatest car builders in the import scene build Civic hatchbacks and, old Integras and Supras and Corollas and all these cars that are classic Skylines to an extreme level. There's plenty of Japanese manufacturers and businesses and car shops that are building stuff all carbon fiber, active garage, R32s and 3s. I mean, we have plenty of examples, but there's never been anything televised, right? And so I've always watched these shows and said, I know somebody's making resto modded versions of these cars or whatever today's version of something very classic would be. And Evasive Motorsports in California essentially did that. I've been tracking them on Instagram for a number of months since they've been working on this. They're making an S2000R. I used to own the S2000. As you see right here, they basically did the R version, like an NSX-R, of what the S2000 would have been today and age. Personally, I think it looks awesome. The interior to me reminds me of if you see up here above me, interior reminds me of a GT3 with the door pulls, carbon fiber. Those Vaquero buckets are butter. Okay, I've seen those a few times. I have in my head asked myself if I was going to spend the money to at least buy one for my car. I don't know if I can really fit in it. 6'3", over 200, still a 36-inch waist, but I don't know. I'm just saying that seat is fire. Now, they basically created the car, added different suspension components, improved the handling, improved the power output, changed the styling of it. Very OEM plus, I would say OEM plus, because it does look aggressive, kind of very track oriented, especially when you get to the interior. But when you see this, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of them taking classic cars, resto modding them, adding something to it currently for how it looks now in today's world of what maybe Honda would have done if they would have kept making that car. I think it looks great. I do have one knock. Here's just a knock. They swapped out the engine for the one that's in a Civic Type R, the FK8 version. I don't know the engine code of it. Somebody's gonna know it, and you understand what I'm talking about. So it makes 306 horsepower. Obviously, a good 60 plus horsepower over what the original S2000's F20C motor was doing. But here's my problem that I have with the engine choice, is that it takes away from the ethos and the main characteristic of an S2000. Anybody that owned an S2000, myself included, current owners, people that I meet, we all have said the same thing. The experience of driving it, redlining to 9,000 or 8 if you got an AP2, or if you could have changed it and raised it up back, is undeniable. I mean, you can't recreate that. And to me, to chase horsepower for the sake of saying it makes more power, to me, it takes it away. If I was to build one of these S2000Rs, I would honestly tell them, keep the motor the same. Let's refresh it. Let's add as much as we can to it to up the power it can do naturally aspirated, because there are a few things that you can do, not much, because it was engineered to the highest level from the factory. But to me, that motor has to stay. It has to stay. That is what an S2000 is. It's similar to people making an argument about RX-7s when they do motor swaps. I'm like, it's cool. I would drive a V8 RX-7. I'm not going to knock an LS swap on an RX-7. I mean, that sounds like a good time. But nothing beats when you see one still having a rotary in it. So it has a rotary in it, and you hear the sound, that little brap sounds, and you hear it coming. You're like, respect, okay? It's a nod of approval, because we already know that that's what it was built behind. So I would say everything about this S2000R is great, but I would have kept the motor the same. Modify the engine, do ITBs on it. If you could, maybe you could do an enclosed and intake plenum that would allow the airflow to come from the same intakes. I would have did something like that where it was like more motorsporty, but kept the engine. I mean, having driven and owned one, no, they don't got torque. Like if you're at a red light and somebody's in like a minivan, you will get dusted, okay? You better be on your P's and Q's if you're trying to do anything from a stop sign in an S2000. It's not gonna be a good look. Them cars ain't got the torque, but they're about the balance. Back roads, twisties. When you start driving them like that, one of the best experiences you'll ever have. So outside of everything else though, personally, if I was to build one, keeping the F20C. And outside of that, this to me is introducing something else that I saw got announced, and now Super Street has a car show coming out on Motor Trend TV. Now I stopped subscribing to Motor Trend TV a long time ago because I was just kind of like burnt out for the classic trucks and the classic muscle cars. I was just like, all right. But to see Super Street, see the ad appear coming to Motor Trend TV, I hope that they start introducing shows where they are building imports in that regard. And I don't want it to be some cheesy, we're slapping on a turbo kit, we're slapping on a front lip kit, and we're done. See y'all later. I mean, dive in. Show the full, Y-wire tucks, the, complete engines that are rebuilt, the chassis being painted, the parts from Japan being flown in, the details being put on. Like, I want to see all that. There's a market for it. We're all sitting here watching. I understand YouTube and things like that are more prevalent than it is normal broadcast or production TV, but there's a market for it. You do it right, we'll come and watch it. But the big news, the news that I saw, and I know y'all are gonna say, yo, get off BMW's back. But listen, I don't do this. Mercedes showed the new E-Class, and you see what it looks like. Mwah. Okay, that's how you age gracefully, okay? That's how you design a luxury sedan. One that is aimed at your volume seller, the E-Class. Look at the taillights. Look at the flush door handles. Look at the wavy headlight design they put on it now. Look at the grills. It's all coming together cohesively. This is what I mean. See, I don't just make this stuff up. I'm not talking to a wall. Somebody's hearing me. You see what they did. Clean design. So Mercedes announced the 2024 E-Class. Obviously a big deal. They didn't show any other trim models. They didn't show the crazy AMG models that you know are sitting in the tuck. But they showed the basis of what we have, and what we're going to use as far as when it comes to the E-Class. I want to talk about the interior, okay? Because Mercedes has been not only knocking it out the park, they've been doing everything correct up to a point. I do want to speak on something. We are now getting into the design language where everything is a screen. Visually, though, as you can see in the picture, when you step back, it's impressive. Like you'd be in the back seat like, oh man, front seat's popping. So it looks good. But I will say one thing. We do need to find a balance between tactical feel, buttons, and not everything being a giant touchscreen fingerprint magnet, because this looks immaculate now. But if you're an owner and you're touching the screen and swiping and doing all that, we're gonna have to get back to having driving gloves. That's what this is. I just found a market. Driving gloves. We got to get like felt driving gloves that allow you to still have touch, but don't put fingerprints on the screen. Don't tell me I never gave you nothing. Besides that, jokes aside, but no jokes aside, that's the idea. So you can see giant touch screens, front, center, passenger. Now the passenger one now can stream any type of media. It even can do TikTok. Now I know that might be kind of a sad state of affairs of where we're headed, where the latest information on a luxury car being revealed is that the passenger can watch TikTok. I mean, come on. I didn't know that was on the list of due diligence, but the passenger screen can watch TikTok. If the car is stationary, you can do a Zoom call, which, I mean, I guess, sometimes a port meetings happen. You got to pull over to the side of the road, fire up the camera. They did mention that on the passenger side screen, there's a camera that's looking at the driver, so that if you're driving, you kind of turn your head to the side looking at the screen. I don't know what happens. I'm assuming it alerts you, vibrates the steering wheel, turns the screen off and says, look ahead or something. I don't know. But obviously with all these screens, I know that we always talk about distracted drivers, and I can't front. When I see this type of layout, when they show all these screens, I'm like, there's no way that a lot of people won't be distracted, especially with the brightness, the ambient lighting. Like, you really need to set up the settings to do what you want. And I guess they understand that, because in the new E-Class, they have basically, Mercedes-Benz says they have AI. Now, PSA, the AI thing is happening a lot right now. I work in tech. Many people are just getting to grips with what was already happening on the back end with ChatGPT for many months, years. Now it's front and center. We got Drake rapping songs that he didn't even make. Sound kind of fire though, ain't gonna lie. We got AI now in the car. So listen, Will Smith warned us. Okay, so get ready. iRobot's around the corner. But I digress. So Mercedes-Benz AI, whatever that may be, their infotainment system has obviously an AI component built in that wants to remember your habits. So when you get in the car, certain things that you do, it tries to remember them and repeat them for you, or you can set it up to do this. So if you get in the car and you want to set the mood, the lighting, the brightness of the screens, this radio station, this podcast, this seat position, this destination, you can essentially set your profile to do all that as soon as you get in the car. more than memory seats. This is like memory settings for every profile, basically. A lot of cars do have profiles and they share little things or save certain things like stations and a little bit of the destination thing. But essentially what this is doing is that everything is going to be set to who you are. If you like driving in this mode, if you like driving in comfort setting with the suspension, essentially the entire car is built around what you are doing and what your profile says you want to have. That's a cool feature, though. As I said before, and I've said it repeatedly, we are unrolling computers. I want to know who's protecting the back end and who's protecting the data. If you're loading up TikTok, we're already on the edge, right? When it comes to how much data is being transmitted, right? If the cars have profiles that are logging into maybe certain accounts you have, let's say you have had a Zoom meeting. So if I'm logging into my Zoom account with an email from like a Gmail account or my Outlook account, we're talking about personal information is now transmitting between me, my information, the car, the cloud. I want to know what Mercedes is doing for the back end of security. Like I said, you're going to have to buy antivirus protection. It's getting wild out here. You can't just have all these features and then not have a loophole or a open. Now, I know you wonder why I'm back, right? Because that was a quick delay. And you're like, what happened? Well, guess what? In my ever growing YouTube channel, career, side, joy, and hobby, I ran out of space on the camera. Ran out of space. Was out here talking my head off. Just to come find out when I went to the back of the camera, it was like, hey, yo, you ain't got no more storage, dog. So that is why the last scene you saw was me talking about Mercedes-Benz having a back end and loophole and possibly being hacked, and then my whole camera stopped. So it kind of looked like I was hacked. Who knows? They're always listening. So I didn't get to do my outro. So we're doing it a little bit later. I'm not even going to continue what I talked about with Mercedes. I pretty much wrapped up the news on that. It was only like 2 more minutes I was talking about the kind of the interior, but mainly the outside. We already know what it looks like. There are some people that need to be paying attention to what Mercedes is doing. We know that. So as always, like, subscribe, okay? Hopefully this one doesn't stop recording. Like, subscribe. You know what to do. This is episode 14. I think it might be 15. The little director's cut might say 14, but listen, forgive me. I'm only one man. Do as you wish. Do as you may. I'll see y'all around. I'm out.